Okay, so I've got this basic layout for my room done now, so now I want to make some of my own furniture that can be used in this project, but also then in some other project files that we're going to have for the other spaces in this hotel. So it's really important here that instead of using model in place, we make, again, what's called a loadable family. So the idea there is that it's a separate file, and you do that by going to the File menu and then choosing New and then Family. So before I just do that, is it clear why I'm doing that? So why do you use model in place? So? To do modelling, yep. So what sorts of furniture would you use model in place for? Built-in, yeah, but what sort of built? Yeah, pretty much that's right. Yeah, that is pretty much right. The idea is it's a one-off. So it's something that's unique to this project. That's when you use model in place. So for one-off elements, go for it. Use model in place every time and it's fine. But if it's something that's going to be repeated, even if it's just repeated once in your project, you should think about using a loadable family instead. And that's when you go and make a new family file rather than using model in place. So again, it's that idea of uniqueness versus repetition. So here, because I know these things, I'm going to be focusing on making some tables. They're repeated, so I'm going to make a new family. So file, new family, and then it gives you this huge big list of templates to choose from. Now, if you're not sure which template to choose, try and go for the ones that have simpler names. So we've got all these metric casework families. There's metric casework wall-based, but that's more complicated than metric casework. So if you're not sure, again, use the one with the simpler name. So again, we've got, say, metric generic model adaptive, metric generic model ceiling, face-based, floor-based, and so on. And I'm just going to find metric generic model. Okay, so that's our metric generic model. So that's good if you're not sure which category to use, then generic model's good. But I do know what category I want to use, so I'm going to close that. And then I'm going to make a new family again. And I'm going to use metric furniture because I'm making some tables. I'm making some tables, so metric furniture makes sense. Yeah, that's right, exactly. Yep. Now you can change the category afterwards. If you go up here to family category and parameters, you can change them, but it's not always going to work. But in most cases you can change to a different category after you've made it. Okay, so I've got my, my new file created. So then I might just go and save that straight away. File menu, save as, family. Okay, so you save it just like a project file, except that it's got the extension RFA instead of, do you know what it is for a project file? RVT, spot on, that's right, exactly. Yeah. That's it, it's good. Okay, so I'll save this so you can get to it. So I'll save it on the P drive, in interior design, Revit library, and then furniture, and tables. I'll save it here. So I'll call this table round taper leg. What I'm doing basically. So I'll make the tabletop first. I'm just going to make an extrusion for that. And I'll draw a circle from that center point, bring it out, and we'll make it 600 mil should do. Then for the height, maybe I'll make it 600 mil for the top. Sorry, not 6,000, 600. So that's the extrusion end. And then I'll make the extrusion start just 550. So that means it's going to be 50 mil deep. If I finish that, I'll go to a 3D view. And there you can see my tabletop. If you go to a view like this and you can't see anything, just remember you can always right click and then zoom to fit. So there's my tabletop. Now I'll go back to the plan view, back to the Create tab, and so I've done extrusion, so now I'll go to Blend. And so then I'm going to make another circle, again starting in the centre on that intersection, and I'll just bring it out by eye to the size I want the bottom of this leg to be, so yeah, that's about right. And then I'm going to go to Edit Top. So you can see that the difference with extrusion is that you just draw one shape. With a blend, you need to draw two. So you draw the base first, then click Edit Top to draw the second shape, and I'll go and draw another circle and just make it a little bit smaller than the first one. So it's going to blend from the bigger circle to the smaller one. Yeah, so I clicked Edit Top and then it changes to Edit Base. So if I go to Edit Base now, I can edit the original circle, and there's Edit Top. So if I click Edit Top, it takes me back to the second circle. So? Well, I did it centred. That's on the centre. Oh, they can be off-centre. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, they can be off-centre. I'll show you an off-centre one in a second. Yeah. So here, I'm just going to change the second end to 550. So if it's starting at 0, that's the ground, and it's going to go up to the bottom of that extrusion that I made before. So I'll finish this now, and if I go to my 3D view, there you can see the result. So I've got a tapering cone or cylinder, and so then maybe that tabletop's too big, so I can always just select that now, edit extrusion, and I might just make that radius a bit less. Yeah, that is pretty big for a table like this, so I'll make it maybe 400. Yeah, that'll do. That's more like it. Okay, so that's a blend. So maybe I'll show you how you can do some different things with them. So I'll go back and, with it still selected, we can go to either Edit Top or Edit Base. So I'll go to Edit Top, and maybe we'll just move that circle. Oh, sorry, let's go to Edit Base, and I'll move that circle instead of moving the top, move the bottom, just offset it to one side, and that might give us an interesting result. If I finish it, and in 3D you can see it's still blending from the bigger circle to the small circle, but now we've got a different result, of course. So that has really chunky lines because of the scale there, so I'll just reduce that to 1 to 20 to get finer lines. So I actually don't mind that, but I might make it go back to being symmetrical, so I'd go back to the base and then just move that back to the centre. Okay, so I've got my basic shapes there, and I'm really doing this to show you some of these other modelling tools. So I'll go now and do Revolve. Might go to the front view for that. So again, we've done extrusion, we've done blend, so now I'll go to Revolve. And I'm just going to draw a little shape on the end of this edge of the table. So I've just drawn a line there, and I'm going to go and draw an arc and bring that out to get my little semicircle shape. So you can probably tell what I'm doing. That's going to be the edge of the table, of the tabletop, to give us a nice beveled or rounded edge there. So then I'll do one extra thing. So again, starts off like an extrusion. You have to draw that profile first, and you do that with this boundary line option. But now I've got to go to axis line, and here I'm just going to simply draw a line over that centre axis. So I'm just going to now revolve this shape around that blue axis I've just drawn. So you'll see. So if I go to my 3D view, so I've put a rounded edge rather than getting a square edge on the table, that's all. It would. You could do it with a sweep. Yeah, but you don't need to. So Revolve, well, I'm going to do a different example for a sweep. But yeah, you could do a sweep for that. So, one little thing though you can do to make that look a bit cleaner is use join geometry now to join the Revolve to the original extrusion. Oh yeah, I'm recording it. Yep. Okay, so I'll save the file at that point. And now, if I go to loading the project, then I can place a few of these around. So maybe I'll put one over here, and then maybe over here, and I don't know, somewhere there, that'll do. Yeah, a few tables. So the idea here is that you'll have, if you're working on this project, you're going to have a few different project files, one for each space. If you're not, well, I'm not sure what you did with the cruise ship, but you might have done something similar there. And so we can load these same furniture items into those different projects. So now if I go and make a camera view, of course we can see them. Okay, so there's a couple of them, and the other one's a bit too close to the camera, but it should be down here. There it is. Okay, so they're all the same family. So if you realise, well, actually, they're a bit low. So I want to change the height. So I go back and select one of them, edit family, go to my front view, and maybe I'll start by just selecting those things and moving them up. Oh, now, actually, we have to do this in stages, so I'll move the Revolve, because that can be moved without any problem. But the extrusion's a bit different. It wants us to type in the heights here. We can use the move tool, but I'll show you how to do that later. So for now, I'll just type in the new heights I want. Right, so I've lifted the tabletop up. I'm just going to bring the blend up there by stretching. Oh no, I'll type it in actually. So I've made my change. I've saved the file, load into project again. And then when you get this message, if you're not sure which option to use, generally the first one is actually the best. You'll know later when to use the second one. It's all to do with the way you're working with parameters, but again, generally the first one is better. So when I click there, that's right, that's the whole point. Oh, then you save it, probably the easiest way, save it as a new file. Yep. So imagine if you'd made these with model in place and then copied them. To change them, you'd have to go and edit each one. And that's the difference. So it's all about the management, and that's really why I wanted to make sure you're all comfortable with loadable families, because that's really the whole reason Revit exists, and it's the reason it's the way it is. It's all to do with the management of these objects for building projects. Yeah, so that's what I'm going to show you right now. So I'll come back to the other modelling tools in a moment, but yeah, I want you to see materials, because that's, for interiors work, one of the most important things. So that's a good example. So this bed was mostly done with AutoCAD. That 3D is too complicated for Revit. You can do it, but you'd spend half your life doing it, and it still wouldn't look very good. Yeah, it's hard. Yeah, it's very hard in Revit. It's not the right tool. That's what I was trying to explain before. You can do it, but it's just very hard. AutoCAD, or in fact, I'd say this might even be 3ds Max. It's then been brought back into AutoCAD, and then from there taken into Revit. Possibly, yeah. Or find someone else's bed. If they've done all the hard work for the sheets and the pillows, you're not designing those things anyway. So just get something that looks good, and you can still make the rest of the bed yourself. But for those soft furnishings and things like that, yeah, just find something, and you'll find plenty that you can download for free that have all of that detail. You won't be able to modify it in Revit, no, because it hasn't been made there. Yeah. So yeah, so that's why it does help to have some familiarity with those other programs as well, if you're interested in that sort of work. But yeah, so then getting back to materials. So again, I've got these tables, and then if I go to Edit Family, right. So I do want to show you the other modelling tools, but also while we're doing it, I want to start to look at this idea of parameters. Now, when you go through maybe some of my other demos, you'll see that I go through parameters to set the size of things. And actually, maybe we'll just switch back to the project so that you can see one of those. So a window is a good example. Windows have lots of different sizes set up usually. It's still the same window family, but it's got all the sizes built in. Right, so we can just choose those different sizes from the list there, and the window, of course, just changes automatically. So those sizes are set up using what's called parameters. And these are the parameters, the height and the width there. Those things are variable. So another parameter that you can set up easily is a material parameter. So the materials are all variable as well, or they're adjustable. So when you make your own families, you need to be able to set those things up. And material parameters are probably the easiest. So I'll just show you those when I select this table, and again go to Edit Family to open that file. So I want to put in a material for the tabletop, so I'm going to select that. Now it's just got the edge, but don't worry, it'll do the whole thing because it's all joined. So over here, you'll find the material, usually where it says by category. So I'm going to click there and then click Browse, and then notice this list of materials is probably much smaller than what you'd be used to when you're looking through those big project files that have massive lists of materials, and then you see this and it's got, what is it, 6 materials. And that tells us it's a different file. So these are the materials that the family file has. The big list is there because those materials are in your project file. Now, I can make the material here if I want to, but there's no need to. So I'm going to cancel that. I just wanted to show you that so you know about the materials in the family. I'm not going to do anything with those. I'm just going to click on the button next to it, which you might have clicked on before by mistake and seen this thing and not knowing what to do with it. Right, so that's Associate Family Parameter. So it's a long-winded name for something that's actually quite simple. We just need to make a parameter by clicking New Parameter down the bottom and then give it a name. So I'm going to call this Table. Let's call it Tabletop. And just to make it clear, material. And then, oh yeah, type an instance. That's a good point. It's to do with whether it's adjustable as a type or as an element. So we'll make this one an instance, just so you can see the difference. So I'll make that instance, click OK. And then the leg, I'll select that, and then again click on that blank button to associate a parameter. Click New Parameter, and we're going to call this Table Leg Material. I'm going to leave that one as type. So then I'll save my file, click Load into Project, overwrite the existing version, forget that second option for now, and then I'm going to select one of these tables, and then notice how over here in Properties we see Tabletop Materials there. If I go to Edit Type, the Table Leg Material property is there. So what that tells us is that if I change the leg material, they'll all change because they're all the same type. So I'll hit Browse there. So let's say we want them to be this aluminium for now. Yeah, I just want to make sure, I'll choose the first one just so it's a bit more obvious when it changes. So if I click OK, they all change. Again, they're all the same type. But when it's an instance property, what that means is that each instance, each table, can be different. So if I change the material of the first one to something that has a colour that's obvious, maybe not fabric, but maybe wood for now. So it's changed, but the others haven't. So they can all be unique. Right, so I'll just choose something completely different. And this one can be something else again. Right, so each table type can be different. Now, if I go back and edit that family, I can, if I go to here, this button is the button to manage your family types. So if I go there and find that tabletop material, I can edit that and change it to a type parameter. And so now, all the tabletops have to be the same. So that's the difference between type and instance. So that can help you as well if you think about the way you're setting up your families. Again, because you're going to have to make a lot of these, custom elements for your own hotel or whatever spaces you're doing. Think about whether they need to be different materials, or you have that option, or whether they should all be the same. And so then just to go back to finish off those modelling tools, I'm going to, again, just select that table, edit family. So now I want to make a new family that's based on this one. Now, you'll see a lot of people, when you're a bit more advanced, you can do a lot of these things using types. So you can set up several different types, a bit like the window sizes that I had set up, that will give you variations on that family. But that's a bit more advanced. So a better way to start off doing that, and I still do this all the time anyway, is to make a new family. Give it a new name by using Save As. So in the File menu, just go to Save As, Family, and so I'm going to change this to Table Oblong, or Rectangular. Rectangular Table. That'll do, if I can spell. There we go. Okay, so I can change the length to a rectangle fairly easily just by selecting it, go to Edit Base, and get rid of the circle and draw a rectangle instead. Edit Top, do the same thing. That'll do. So that's my my base done, my leg. But to change the top, I can't do that round edge anymore with a Revolve. It won't work. So I'm going to have to do it a different way, and that's a good chance to show you sweep. So I'll delete that, and then I'm going to change my extrusion to a rectangle as well. So yeah, about that size. Okay, so that's fine. So that's my tabletop done. But again, I want to put that rounded edge on it. So again, good chance to show you sweep. So with that, under Create, again, this time we'll go to Sweep. So here you can see you've got these different options. So unlike Revolve, you can't do the profile first. You've got to do the path first. So there's a bit of a trick there. Before you go to make the path, make sure you go to the view where you want to draw it first. Don't click Sketch Path, then try to change the view, because it's also to do with the way the plane gets set. So it's best if you go to that view first and then draw your path. So I want to draw it in plan view, so I've gone to that view first. Now I'm going to click Sketch Path, and I'm just going to draw a rectangle, but I'm going to use the line tool just so it's clear to you how it works. So I'm going to draw my rectangle around that table edge using this line tool. And then you'll see that the first segment that I've drawn has this profile plane sitting on it. So it's that little green line there, that's our profile plane. So I'm going to finish the path so that you can see that plane in a 3D view. Right, so there's the plane, just so it's a bit clearer. So if I'd drawn it with the rectangle tool, the plane would have gone to one of those edges, but I wouldn't have known which one, because when you're using the rectangle, it's not clear which is the first edge. Does that make sense? Whereas with the line tool, you know because you're the one who's drawing it. So there's our plane, and we need to know where that plane is to draw the next thing, which is the profile. So for that, I'm going to go to the front view now, and again, I can see that plane there. And that's the key. You've got to be able to know where the plane is to draw your profile. So draw the profile, select profile, and then edit profile. So here, even though the plane is anchored down on the ground, I can still draw up here where I want my shape to go. That's fine. So I'm just going to again draw the same as I drew before for the Revolve, just a line. And, oops, I went too far there, so I'll do that again. So I want to make sure I draw snapping to the endpoints there. And then I'll draw an arc, just like before as well. So there's my shape for the edge of the table. Tick to finish. And then finish it again. And in 3D, we've got a rectangular edge, I suppose. So maybe I'll just show you one little extra thing that's going to maybe help you to think about modelling. Oh. That it's impossible. Yeah, so it's good if you're thinking about that. That's a limitation in Revit. So with the sweep tool, yeah, that's a limitation. So your paths have to be flat. They're always two-dimensional. Now, you can do three-dimensional sweeps using massing. So you can have splines that are not flat, that change height or have different planes. So that's one possibility. The other possibility is, yeah, you can do multiple sweeps. That's right, in different planes. Or you can use AutoCAD. AutoCAD can do sweeps in any plane, and so can 3ds Max, of course. But yeah, it's a limitation with the sweep tool itself in Revit. But yeah, you can work around it. But one thing you might want to do here is instead of having these hard corners, you might want to make this have rounded corners. Okay, so to do that, it's a bit of a two-step process. Firstly, I'd have to go and adjust the original extrusion. So I'll go and edit that extrusion. And then I'll use fillet arc just to round those corners off. And I'll make them all have the same radius. Let's just make it 80. It's not going to be the greatest design I've ever done, but that's all right. So here, and that's a good one to know. A lot of people don't know that you do have fillet in Revit. It's just in a different place to AutoCAD. So I've rounded off the original tabletop, of course. Now I want to make the sweep follow that. So I'm going to select it and then go to Edit Sweep. And then to change the path, it's not Edit Path, you just go back to Sketch Path. And then I can go to my Plan View, and instead of drawing those fillets in again here, pick lines. Should let me pick those curves more quickly, and then just using trim, we can, oops, just join all those together. Okay, so that's my new path. If I finish that and then finish it again, of course now the sweep follows that. And maybe to tie it all together, you might want to round off the blend, and you can do that too, but I won't show you that. You can try that. So, yeah, you can join those together. Yep, no problem. So again, not the greatest design I've ever done, because it probably needs to have the rounding on this base as well for it to make sense, but I'll just load it in like that. So here you can see it's got a new file name, so if I save it, load into project, and place these, of course they're different families, so if I change this one, of course it's not going to affect the others because they have a different name. So often the easiest way to make variations on a family is just to save it as a new file. So that should be enough, I think, to get you going with families. And so again, I've shown you all the modelling tools except for Swept Blend. The voids simply have the same modelling tools. And I'll just give you a tip with Swept Blend. If you're trying to make something that complicated, massing is going to work much better for you. Because Swept Blends can only work with two shapes anyway. You can have a profile for the beginning and the end of your path. That's it. With massing, you can have as many profiles as you want. So it's a bit more powerful. Well, that's all I'll say. Swept Blend is actually quite a limited tool. So again, think about massing if you're taking your modelling to that level. You get a lot more out of massing. And if you want to go beyond that, then you need to think about different software. not Revit. And again, it's not because Revit isn't capable. Revit actually can handle really complex 3D models. It can actually even import NURBS and work with them. You just can't create those things with Revit. It's not meant as that sort of modelling tool. So the technology's there, what I'm saying, it's built into the program, it's just, again, they deliberately limit your access to them for different reasons. So again, when you're doing your designs, think about when you should be using model in place as opposed to in-place families. And so looking maybe back at this example here, even with a bespoke or a custom built-in unit like this, those cupboard door handles, they're obviously the same throughout that unit. So even though you might make most of the unit just using model in place, you could still make things like the door handles as a loadable family, and that way if you change one, they'll all change. And there'll be lots of elements like that, even in your built-ins. But then when you've got, lampshades, chairs even, definitely tables, you can maybe start to think about using loadable families a bit more. And it should also help you when you go to download other people's families. The more comfortable you are working with loadable families, because, of course, all of those ones you can download are loadable. And so maybe we'll just remind you about some of the good sources of loadable families. Just see if you all know them. Revit City, I'm sure everyone knows. Oh, the plugins are okay. The plugins basically just give you a quicker way of getting to those things. Yeah. So, yep, so Revit City's good. Any others that, we'll see if there's any you tell me that I don't know. BIM Object's okay, yeah, so BIM Object's a funny one. You'd think it should be good. The problem with BIM Object, it was, well, the thing that preceded it was an Autodesk thing. Yeah, well, yeah, so they used to have this thing called, well, it doesn't even matter, but there was another one that was run by Autodesk, and then they folded that and then rolled it all into BIM Object, which is made by a different outfit. They're not Autodesk. I think they're British. I'm not sure. Pretty sure it's a British company though. So they're good, usually, but they're trying to do things in the by-the-book Revit, out of the box way, and that's using these things called shared parameters. I don't want to bore you with too much technical stuff, but shared parameters are overkill for most people. You don't really need them most of the time. But they've set up most of their objects, or not most, but a lot of their objects, requiring shared parameters. So if you get a message telling you it's not working properly or there's a file missing, it's usually because it wants that shared parameters file. So what you can do though is download their shared parameters file. Just search for it, they've got it, and you can just download that, tell Revit where it is, and then you can work with those files. So it's usually to do with the shared parameters. Otherwise, BIM Object's pretty good. There are others though, plenty of others. So, okay, guys in my class normally would know about the one that I really like just because I've got a soft spot for them because they kind of got me started. The first big project I got to project manage and do everything from beginning to end was a big government building, and they spent the extra money and got all Herman Miller furniture for the whole building, which was great because I got to go through the whole Herman Miller catalogue and just order whatever I wanted and all the bits and pieces that you can get. And I got to even hire a warehouse and then hire some labourers to go and assemble them for me and do all sorts of different configurations and really just have fun with all their bits and pieces, which was great for about 5 years. I just really enjoyed that. So I've got a really soft spot for them, but I learnt their products really well, and this was a while back, but realised that they do have a great range of designer furniture. It's in with all their workstations and other things, but they do have really good chairs and plenty of other things. Not so much for residential, but they've got a bit of that. But for commercial projects, you won't find much better than them. So they're great, and most of their stuff now is available as Revit. Going to show you a few others though. Knoll, not my favourite, but they're pretty good. Knoll Furniture have most of their things available for Revit. For bathroom fittings, Caroma, you'll find more fashionable manufacturers of these things, but they don't usually have Revit, whereas Caroma have most of their things available for Revit. And then you've got things like windows and doors. So what are some of the bigger windows and door makers? Yep, Trend, Stegbar, definitely, yep. So now Trend, they did have Revit, but then I looked not long ago and they didn't seem to have it. So I'm just going to have a quick look. Oh yeah, here, looks like they do. Yeah, maybe they just don't have as much as Stegbar. Oh, that's right, yeah, I just look at this, yeah. So they just seem to not have as much, but they've got a bit. Yeah, still alright. Yeah, so Trend are okay. I think they got, yeah, it's funny. All these guys, Trend, Airlight, and Stegbar, and a few of the other big ones, they all got taken over by Geldwen not long ago. Geldwen, I think, is German, or they're anyhow European. And so they seem to be taking over all the door and window makers. But for the time being, they still are coming up as separate companies. And I've heard some rumours they're going to roll them into one. So, they're okay, but they're better. So, another one that's really good, AWS, is Architectural Window Systems. They're one of my favourite companies, for commercial projects especially. And I've been looking a lot at their Revit families lately, and they work beautifully. Unlike some of the others, the Stegbar ones, I've got to say, some of them can be a bit ordinary. But these, now they're all metal, unfortunately, so if you want timber, you're out of luck, but if you want metal, for commercial or residential, these guys are brilliant, and their door families especially are some of the best you'll ever find. So they change size and the number of panels, and everything adjusts pretty well. So that's a good one to know. Corinthian, I'm pretty sure, have Revit files as well, but I haven't looked. Maybe don't say those. What's another one? Is there any that I haven't mentioned that any of you have been using? Oh, okay, yep. So, or Modlar. Yep, so they have a lot of stuff as well. So sometimes though, the best thing to try is just search for Revit families. So there's no point reinventing the wheel. If someone else has made something that you want, go and find it. And it's easier than making it yourself. But again, what I've just shown you hopefully will help a lot when you're adjusting other people's families. So maybe a really simple example I can give you there is if we've got a door. So often those American doors have things like architraves. Right, so there's the standard Revit door that is meant to be metric, but it's set up for American style construction where they still use architraves a lot more than we do here. So I want to change that door now to take the architrave off. So I'll just select it, edit family. Maybe we'll have a look at it in 3D view. That is a 3D view. So there's the door. And then we've got these two architraves. I don't want them anymore. So I'm just going to select them and delete them. And all the lines to do with them. Load it into my project. And overwrite. That easy. Okay, so same with most families in Revit. You should be able to modify them pretty comfortably once you've got a basic idea how loadable families work. So it helps to have made your own, so that you can do things like that and change other people's as well. So maybe I'll give you some time to try out some of your own families. Unless there's any questions or anything. And then later we'll look at doing some lighting families. They're a little bit more involved, but based on similar ideas. Yep, so I'll give you some time to try that.